And he's still doing chaplaincy work for the hospital and the police force, I believe. And yeah, very generous man, very generous and warm. So just delighted to be to have him here tonight giving this talk. And so thank you, Dharmanatha.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Josie. Thank you. I was a bit disappointed when I noticed that the introductions to these talks aren't recorded. I did a nice boost to my confidence to hear that again at my leisure, but I'm very grateful. Thank you. Lovely introduction. And it's just fantastic to see you all. And particularly the odd Christmas jumper and the odd Christmassy thing in the background. Happy Christmas, everybody. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Diwali. And well, and we haven't got one going on, have we? Where's the Buddhist Christmas? You may be feeling a bit neglected. It's okay, because as you can see, we can borrow Christmas. We're culturally entitled to Christmas, I think. And there's another thing you may have noticed, I'm sure you have, that an awful lot, if not most, religious festivals happen to be in juxtaposition with major changes in nature. And this time of year is a very good example of that, isn't it? We have just had the winter solstice yesterday. So the shortest day, the longest night yesterday, and it's all downhill from here, isn't it? So slightly, did you notice that slightly longer day today? Maybe not, but this is the start. This is us moving from the bleak midwinter to the sunlit uplands of spring and summer, from darkness to light. You can see why that would be an attractive time to hitch a religious festival to. And traditionally, we're connected with turning points in nature as well. We mark the turning points signified by the moon, by the full moon in particular. And we have our festivals on full moons. We have full moon pujas, and that links us to the earliest of the Sanghas. The Buddha's Sangha met on the full moon, we're told. So this thing about being together as a Sangha, this Sangha came together, the Buddha's Sangha, not just to hear the Buddha, if they were lucky enough to be in his vicinity, but to just be with one another as a Sangha, as we are tonight. And here's the thing, the way we run these Zoom events, I am probably filling up an awful lot of your screen. It doesn't have to be that way, although I've obviously made a special effort tonight with the jumper and everything. Do feel free to go to gallery view. If it helps you, it helps me. If it helps you get a better sense, an improved sense of being with your brothers and sisters in the Sangha. I won't know you've done it, although I did see somebody's hand moving just then, so maybe I will know you've done it. Yeah, feel free. So the Buddha's Sangha meeting on the full moon, they wouldn't have had an idea, most of them, I think, of what the calendar date was. They weren't lucky like us. They didn't have doodle polls, the poor old things. But they'd really know what was happening around them in nature. They'd be aware of what was happening in the natural world, of the subtle harbingers of the changes of seasons, almost on a daily basis, marked by what was happening in the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the insects, as well as what was happening in the skies above them. And it's been a bit of a ray of sunshine for a lot of us, I think, that we've had a taste of that as well, or the opportunity for that. with quieter roads, villages, towns, skies, we've had an opportunity to reconnect with nature in that sort of way. And nature's responded. It's rather wonderful. Nature's come in to meet us. We've had deer coming into the outskirts of the village where I live. And during the first lockdown, which back then was just called the lockdown, of course, we didn't know it was the first of several, there was some great footage of some goats that took over a Welsh village. And there's pictures of the goats who are particularly attracted to the children's playground. So there's scenes of the goats taking turns on the children's roundabout. And there's a name for that. There's a new word in the dictionaries. It's coined in the summer. Not for goats on roundabouts, but for this temporary cessation of our activity, almost on a global basis, the activity that gets between us and nature. So it's called an anthropause. An anthropause. So you can add that to your list of words, together with unmute, which is another fairly new one, isn't it? Which we've all learned in the last 6 months or so. We are not just connected to turning points in the external world. We're connected to internal turning points. Our path is about turning our minds around and helping others to turn their minds around. From hatred to compassion, from ignorance to wisdom. And at last, actually, what I'm meant to be talking about tonight, it's not actually about goats. Turning from greed to open-handed generosity, from ardina dana to dana. And I am, I think I've counted this right, I think I'm the 9th person in a row to talk at Sangha night about dana. So you'll forgive me if there's the odd, I touch on the odd thing that previous speakers have spoken about. And it's okay, you can view that if you like as a recap. But I'm actually quite confident that I will be coming at it from a slightly different angle. And that's nothing to do with me. That's to do with the richness and the depth of the Dharma that we have been gifted. It means that every time we approach an aspect of the Dharma, whether as different members of the Sangha or as the same person, the same being on a different occasion, the Dharma will open up anew for us. It will give us something fresh every time we approach it. I'm going to talk then about material giving, and that as part of a path of transformation, how giving transforms us. And I thought I'd approach this on three levels, or perhaps on 3 tiers to be more in tune with the zeitgeist. And I'm afraid I got a little caught off guard with the 4th tier, so I don't have a 4th tier for you. It came in just a bit too late. So I'm going to talk about giving on the mundane level, on the I guess sort of on a secular level, giving not necessarily connected with a spiritual path. And I'm going to spend most of my time talking at that level, as it were. And then more briefly, I'm going to explore how giving, how dana fits into our spiritual life, how it's the start of our spiritual life. And finally, I'm going to touch briefly on dana as a perfection, as a paramita, dana as the foundational practice of the aspiring Bodhisattva. In tier 1 then, this human level, we have all been recipients of generosity. I know that because we're all here, we're all alive and kicking, because we have been given what we needed as infants, as children. Our parents or our other caregivers have given us what we needed to survive. They've given us shelter and warmth and clothing. And we might ask what their motivations were, what lay behind this generosity, this giving. And a knee-jerk response might be, well, it's just love, isn't it? Our parents love us. That's why they look after us. And of course, that's true. And there might be something else going on, might there? We have a duty to look after our children, a duty of care. If we don't, there are consequences. The social services will come knocking on your door if you don't look after your children. So our generosity to our children may be partly motivated by having to do it, by a sense of it's what you do, it's a duty. Even what's held up as a paragon of generosity, the care of a mother or a father for their child, even that may not be entirely unmitigated by other motivations. And isn't this is a really apposite time, isn't it, to look at the mental states which lie behind our acts of giving. Because very recently we may have been struggling with what to get Auntie Susan for Christmas, or whether to get her anything at all. And that might be partly motivated by, again, fear of consequences. If we don't get Auntie Susan anything, or if we get her a really rubbish present, will that result in one of these awful family rifts that you hear about? I hope none of you have been subject to them, but you know, for years afterward, the family in hushed voices talk about Auntie Susan Gate, the year that Auntie Susan didn't get a present from you. So again, a sense of giving motivated perhaps by fear or duty or habit, as well as affection and love. And short of perfection, short of giving, dana, generosity as a paramitar, this is often going to be the case. We're often going to be giving from this messy human world of mixed motivations, mixed mental states behind our acts of giving. Here's the message that I thought might be the I was going to say the take-home message, but you're all home already, aren't you? So I don't know. You've already taken this message home. I've succeeded. The message is stop worrying about what to get Auntie Susan for Christmas. Just get her something, anything. Just give and keep on giving. That's what matters to begin with. And of course, not just to Auntie Susan, to more people, and not just at Christmas. And not just material things. Some of us are not in a position to give extensively in terms of material gifts. And as I'll touch on later, and I'm sure previous speakers have touched on, material gifts are not the most valuable thing we can give. We can give the Dharma, we can give friendship, we can give love, we can give time. All of those things more valuable than material gifts. I'm suggesting that we give and keep giving because if we do, we will change. We will become more generous. We will become more connected with others. And more things will follow. Not immediately. It'd be great if that happened, wouldn't it? But it doesn't happen immediately. We don't give Auntie Susan something and immediately become paragons of generosity. It takes time, and it happens little by little. And there's a lovely verse in the Dharmapada, which I'll read to you, which treats this this subject of us becoming more skillful little by little. Do not underestimate good, thinking it will not approach me. A water pot becomes full by the constant falling of drops of water. Similarly, the wise man, little by little, fills himself with good. So a lovely image there of us, little acts filling us with good eventually. That still doesn't explain, does it, how generosity, how giving changes us. And there's a very short answer to that. And those of you that have known me for any length of time will know that I'll avoid a short answer if I can. So I'm going to give you a slightly longer answer. And I'm going to turn to a text that I last turned to last time I gave a talk to the Sangha about dana, which I think was about 4 or 5 years ago. And this isn't a religious text, although it does concern some religious characters. This is the book. It's you might not be able to see it because I've told you all to go to gallery, haven't I? But don't worry about that. It's the collected scripts of the television series Father Ted. And just to, as briefly as I can, give you the situation of the situation comedy. It's about 3 Roman Catholic priests who have been exiled to an island off the coast of Ireland for various reasons. Father Ted, the eponymous hero, has been caught embezzling money from a charity raffle. Father Dougal is a younger priest, and he's very, very stupid, frankly. And Father Jack is an elderly priest who drinks and smokes to excess. And we usually see him sat in a very unpleasant armchair. And his script consists of 3 words repeated over and over. And those 3 words are drink, girls, and a word that I'm not going to be the first one to say this word on Sangha night. You'll just have to imagine what the other word is, and I will I'll beep it appropriately when I read it out in the script. That's the situation. This particular episode, 3 bishops are coming to visit the island, and Father Ted is very concerned about the trouble that his fellow priests are going to get him into. And he has a conversation with Father Dougal about this. This is how the conversation goes. I'm not going to do the accents. It might be offensive, but this is in Irish, in an Irish register, Southern Irish. Ted, and of course, there's Jack. Dougal, couldn't we hide him somewhere for a couple of days? Ted, no, they'd hear him shouting girls. Dougal, maybe we could train Jack to say something, apart from drink or beep or girls. Like, remember the dog on That's Life a few years back? Ted, Dougal, Father Jack may be bad, but he isn't a dog. We hear a scratching from somewhere outside. Ted, there he is now. I think he wants to go outside. Ted gets up and goes to the door, then he pauses. Ted, wait though. Maybe we could teach him to say 1 or 2 things, nothing too specific, some all-purpose sentences. Something like, that would be an ecumenical matter. Yes, I can't think of any religious question that couldn't be answered by saying that. It's what I always say when people ask me questions. That's the great thing about Catholicism. It's very vague and no one really knows what it's about. I think this might work, Dougal. Yes, it will work. I know it will. Dougal, it won't work, will it, Ted? Ted, it won't, no, but we've got to try. That would be an ecumenical matter then. That answers all religious questions. And it doesn't for us though, does it? It doesn't answer all the questions about Buddhism. But there sort of is an equivalent. And that equivalent is, that would be Praticca Samutpada. It's what I say when people ask me questions about Buddhism. Praticca Samutpada, the Buddha's fundamental teaching, the Buddha's first teaching, is teaching on how things really are. That all things arise and all things cease in dependence upon conditions, or the absence of conditions. So we can apply this. We can apply this to giving, to our acts of giving. Giving as a condition for more giving, for being more generous, because it becomes a habit. So giving as a condition for more giving, more generosity. How does it, I said it connected us with others, didn't I? So how does it do that? Some of you, most of you will have tried to pick up a new skill in your lives. I tried, and I'm still trying, to learn to play the same musical instrument, sort of 20 years on. And one of the things that happened when I picked up a musical instrument and started to try to learn to play it was that I realized I had a sudden insight into how difficult it was. And an insight into how very talented and how committed proper musicians were, people who could really play the instrument I was trying to learn. So learning an instrument in terms of Praticca Samutpada is a condition for appreciating others' skill with that instrument. So again, we could apply that to our giving, and as we give, we may notice, I think we will notice, we'll notice others giving around us. And that's particularly apparent in the Sangha. We are in a Sangha where there are a number of people who give tirelessly, ceaselessly, and selflessly. And it really isn't an exaggeration to say that there are people in this Sangha who are giving their lives for the Dharma, for the Sangha, and for the Buddha, giving their lives for the three jewels. So if we couple this with a fledgling insight into Praticca Samutpada, or conditioned co-production, we can look back over our lives and we can see the acts of generosity from others that have created conditions for us to flourish. This insight is a condition for gratitude. So we become grateful when we start to appreciate this. And I think it was Sanganath a month or so ago who spoke in his talk about the grateful Buddha. The Buddha followed a similar path. He realized how all things are conditioned. And this led him to experience a great surge of gratitude, expressed rather poetically in his staring or gazing with an unblinking gaze at the Bodhi tree for several weeks in gratitude at the conditions the tree had contributed for him. Giving then, that's how giving's a sense, in a sense, a condition for us connecting with others, beginning to see how we are linked in this network of conditions, how we don't have a choice in that. It's how things are. We are connected with others through a web of conditions. We have a choice around how we impact upon others, how we contribute, whether we contribute in a negative way or a positive way for others. This is then a burgeoning awareness of our existential state, the impact of our ethical behavior. And these things in turn must be, mustn't they? They must be conditions for embarking upon a spiritual life. All this from giving a present to Auntie Susan. And this takes us to tier 2. Dana, or giving, as part of our spiritual practice, part of the Buddhist path. Now, Dana is one of a number of ethical training principles, a number of precepts. So now we're working to be kind, to be, as well as generous, to be content. And to be thoughtful, to be mindful. So all these things are coupled together. And we have a lovely image given to us by Bhante Sangha of how the precepts sit next to each other. An image of each precept as a precious pillar of precious metal or precious stone. And these pillars support a canopy, a little like a Grecian temple, like the Parthenon on the Acropolis. And it's a really nice image because one of the things we might realize is that architecturally, this edifice might continue to stand if one of the pillars disappeared, but it would be on very shaky ground. To have a firm foundation for the Dharma and for our Dharma practice, we need all of these pillars in tandem with each other. We need love, we need mindfulness, we need honesty alongside Dharma, alongside generosity. So the question is, what does Auntie Susan get now? What do we give Auntie Susan now? Is it now the perfect gift? Well, it might not be still. We might still be faced with what I see sometimes, which is a rather bemused face of a loved one who unwraps something that I've given them. However, what you give, if we're honestly trying to give from a position of love and mindfulness as well as generosity, what we give will be an improvement, at the very least. And if any musicians, I know there's musicians in the Sangha, if any musicians will forgive me, I'm going to mangle the lyrics of a very well-known jazz classic. So in this stage, it really is, it ain't what you give, it's the way that you give it. That's what gets results. So while I'm meant to be talking about material giving, what we give is not the important thing. What motivates the giving is the important thing. And if what motivates our giving is our engagement with the precepts, with mindfulness, with love, with honesty, with contentment, as well as generosity, then what we give will start to become more of a response to what is actually there. We may well realize and recognize need that's in front of us and respond to that need. And again, this doesn't have to be, it really doesn't have to be material giving. We may give friendship, time. In these days, of course, we may give a Zoom call to somebody. We may see that is really, that's really what seems to be needed. Okay, so we're on to tier 3 now. And Auntie Susan is still waiting for the perfect gift. And Tier 3 is the Bodhisattva. What does the Bodhisattva give? The short answer is Bodhisattvas give everything. Bodhisattvas give their lives. They give all their lives. They give their previous lives, their present lives, and their future lives for the benefit of all beings. And aren't we used to hearing culturally that giving your life is the greatest thing that you can give? It's the ultimate sacrifice. You know, greater love hath no man than he give up his life for another. I thought it'd be appropriate for me to throw in a Christian message, seeing as it is Christmas. There are greater gifts, though. There are greater gifts than life itself. The Dharma is a greater gift than life, more precious than life itself. And the Bodhisattvas give the Dharma. And there's more. There's no limit to the generosity of the Bodhisattva, what he or she will give. And we can only imagine what that means, can't we? It's almost, on a mundane basis, it does not make sense as a sentence almost. There's no limit. We can't imagine what they will give. But we can engage with evocations of what this might be like. And I'm going to finish with a reading from a text which quite a few of you will be very familiar with. It's the Bodhicharyavatara, and I picked this little section of verses, very short, because it demonstrates this this transition from giving the most fantastic mundane gifts, the most fantastic mundane offerings, and then transitioning to offering something completely beyond. As many blossoms and fruits and medicinal herbs as there are, as many jewels as there are in the world, and clear, refreshing waters, along with jewel-formed mountains and other places delightful in solitude, the forest groves, creepers brilliant with beautiful flowers their ornaments, and trees boughs bowed low under the weight of full fruit, along with jewel-formed mountains and other places delightful in solitude. The forest groves, creepers brilliant with beautiful flowers, their ornaments and trees bowed low under the weight of full fruit. So still mundane. And then, and from the worlds of gods and celestials, scent and incense, magical trees that fulfill every wish, and trees laden with gems, lakes adorned with lotuses, where the calls of the geese steal the heart beyond bounds. Thank you. Thanks for giving me this time. It's been a pleasure. I believe that we're going to go into groups in a very short while, and I don't want to be too prescriptive, but I've put a few suggested questions together that you might like to mull over as a group, or you might want to go in a different direction with the material that we've looked at together tonight. So anyway, here are the questions I suggest that might be useful. Your group leaders already have them. So how do you decide what to get Auntie Susan? How do you decide what to give and who to give it to? Do you recognize those three tiers, those three levels of giving? And how do each of the precepts inform your giving? And if you're not engaging with the precepts at the current time, if you're not if you're not engaged as a Buddhist with the precepts, how does your ethical life, how do your ethical values that you hold influence how you give and what you give? And finally, what's the most precious thing that you could give, or the most precious thing that you have received yourself? Good. Okay, so I think we'll just wait to be wafted away to our disparate groups, and I'll see you after that. Thank you.